first class of Assiniboia Residential School, which was held here in 1958. You know how we speak as Anishinaabe, no bounds, no hesitation. And we had a little discussion on what happened in that first year and what kind of reception we got here when we first got here. And I tell you, none of those discussions were recordable. I don't think you'd want to hear the discussions we had. If you could hear laughter from the laughter that was coming from the next tent here a little while ago, that was the discussion of that first year of residential school. And you know, you didn't hear any wailing, you didn't hear any crying. All you heard was clapping and laughing and chuckling, and that's how our people are. And that first year demonstrated the atmosphere that was brought here from our communities.
My name is Theodore Fontaine, and I'm Saugeen First Nation. Well, Fort Alexander, I went in 1948, and I came here in 1958 at Assiniboia. I was here for a little over 2 years.
I would say that I'll always be a part of Assiniboia Residential School because I was here for many, many years. I don't think anybody else will be able to comprehend what I'm feeling right now because this is huge. This is bigger than life. This is about a residential school that was here, but it's almost like as if it wasn't seen. But we were here. We are human beings. Did you see us? Did you see us?
And I want to give you a little history, a little bit about what's really left. In the mid-1970s, they used the gymnasium as a counseling office. When the school started disintegrating and they tore the actual building down, artifacts and valuables of the school were being hauled out to the garbage dump. I came to visit here at the counseling center. I was up in the Northwest Territories. I came home for the summer. And I came into the counseling center to review my feeling in this place. And laying in that same pile by the door, that pile of what they call junk, was that picture. All glass broken. The frame, you couldn't even tell it was a frame. I asked the counselor, I don't remember his name, John, and I says, where's that going? He says, that stuff laying there, that's all going to the garbage. I said, I looked at him and I shook my head. I'm sorry, John, I know, it shouldn't go. And you know what he said to me? Go ahead, Ted, I won't look. So as I walked out the door, I picked up that picture in the awful condition that it was. That picture you see, that's the original picture of the first year of Assiniboia Residential School. 97 students. I don't know how many people are here that are in that picture. But it's a treasure.
I would see him and he'd be in his office, he'd be looking at that picture for long periods of time. He'd be remembering, reflecting, thinking, making notes. you know, and I'd say, like, are you remembering all? I'd be asking questions, you know, like, which ones do you remember? He remembered them all. And he started, this one, this is what happened to her. This is what he did. This one went on to be this. 2/3 of them were dead already. They were gone by age 30 because of the trauma that they had endured in their first residential schools. Like him at Fort Alexander for 10 years. They all had that prior experience before coming here for high school. And many did go on to be enormously successful. But when 2/3 are gone before they even have a chance, you know, what does that tell us?
Chips from the mall.
Yeah. Carrie Seymour.
We got together. I was working with the University of Manitoba, and we were producing some programs to honor residential schools. This school was the first one that was built in a large urban area. So I said to the professor, let's plan something that brings in those students that were here the very first time.
I got involved because I was already working with Theodore, and during one of our meetings he said, you know what the problem is? No one knows anything about Assiniboia.
Ted, Theodore, of course, Fontaine was the one that recruited us. And actually it was Betty. Betty was my classmate. Ted was actually went to school with my brother. Yeah, he recruited me to more than one committee. This was the one that I liked.
It was a really nice moment where, you know, we didn't go in with any sort of preset idea of we're going to do this or we're going to achieve that. Instead, we got together and said, what do you all want? What do you want to achieve through this project?
I think it started in 2017 when we first had our reunion. It was a huge gathering. It was beautiful. It was awesome.
Can you read that?
And then that idea came about trying to do something about the legacy of Assiniboia Residential School.
The National Center for Truth and Reconciliation had proposed putting a marker on the path behind the school along Wellington Crescent, just across the road. There's a walking path that a lot of people use, and Theodore Fontaine and his fellow survivors were just, they weren't having that. They just said, no, we're not going to be buried in the back again. We want to be out front. We need land. And at the time, we had discovered that the RCMP was in the process of selling its former forensics lab. So Theodore said to me, why don't you reach out to the RCMP and see if they'll give us some of that land? Ted, they're not going to give us the land. But what do you know? I wrote them, and eventually this fellow, Manny Amarin, reached out to me and said, yeah, well, you know, we are thinking about reconciliation, and we'd really like to think about how we can contribute. We had identified a particular parcel, a little grass space that was at the front of their parking lot. He said, I'm going to see if I can get that held aside for you guys.
So our first meeting was at the original Pancake House on Pembina Highway. And that was sort of Ted's style. He was fantastic. So it was an enormous honor for me to work with him, to be invited to sit at the table. And really, for the first couple of years, it was like 99% listening. And then I would take the information away and come back with drawings. But I do have a note from Andrew that he sent me early on in 2017 about we have permission to place a marker on the site as long as it's not higher than 3 inches.
I feel like back then it was still the whole meeting point. I kind of want to say that's where the soul wasn't yet. You know, like we were bringing the ideas and trying to develop a way to recognize and acknowledge the past and what happened. And then it formed into a meeting space of where people can meet from all nations. Having this space within this area with one of the only residential schools within Winnipeg allows elders and the Indigenous population speak with non-Indigenous populations and to form and build a relationship.
First of all, there was a spreadsheet that's more than 7 feet high when you print it out in 10-point font of what is now over 1,000 names and 85 communities.
The most important thing about this plaza is that it captures the names of every student who went to the school, and it's alphabetical. So Philip Fontaine just happens to be right here. Richard Fontaine, Theodore Fontaine, the namesake of the project, is right there. And not only do they see themselves when they read these, but they always remember the other people from their community who were also at the school. It's really the lettering of a child from the school based on handwriting samples that we found in one yearbook by David Montana Wesley, who's still with us, lives in Thunder Bay. And it was David from whom we asked permission to use his careful handwriting as a basis for a font that populates the monument.
My name is Dave Wesley. I'm originally from Ontario. Somehow, one morning, we had some we call them Indian agents there back then. So they picked us up and he said, "You're going to school in Winnipeg."
My name is Claire. I come from Pine Creek. I'm one of the 28 students that came here. I came here in 1966 to Assiniboia.
My name is Norbert Ross. I'm from Cross Lake originally, but I went to residential school in Cross Lake, and here, altogether, 14 years.
My name is Lena Zoredich. I'm from Pelican Arrow, Saskatchewan. I was in grade 11 when I left. When I got home, my dad, was happy to see me because I made it home alive.
And when I came to the residential school here, that was my first time to leave my reserve. I didn't know what I was getting into.
I came to school here in 1964. I was about 14 years old. When I first walked in here, I didn't even know what I was expecting. Grade 9s were put in a different dorm. The high school kids were upstairs. You could hear kids, as Norbert said, you could hear kids crying at night because they were brought in. As a 13, 14-year-old boy, leaving home, it's kind of hard. It was very, very hard, I said, yeah.
Happy to walk around and share some memories here. You look to your left here, there was a chapel. On the other side there's a football field. And then that's where we had our two outside rinks. And somehow I feel we're still drawn to those things that were once here.
And one thing I'll say, and I'm very proud of myself, of all the years I spent in residential school, they never took my native tongue away from me. I still speak it fluently. What's ginasti, Tacoma.
My name was Lilian Young. I liked it that Assiniboia wanted to go back. I couldn't because I had a boyfriend. My mom
I'm so happy to be here to see some of the people that went to school with me 1958 to 1962. Wow, I was a James. And if anybody will remember me, my brother was Jason James. I used to see lots of pictures of him now.
And oh my goodness, it was really, really lovely to spend the day with all my fellow students from way back. We had to look twice at each other because, you know, and we looked at the eyes and said, oh yeah, you're in there. It was so nice.
It's not only for Indigenous people, because we are a people that are so giving and say, look here, we have a beautiful monument. May you want to come there. May you want to sit there and, you know, meditate. And when you do that, you can almost see the footprints of all the students of Assiniboia Residential School. When I first met Ted, I saw a white wolf walking here and walking towards him. I was always focused on that white wolf. And I knew that he had a message, that he had a very powerful message to bring to Ted, that he was going to be our leader and then he was going to be our president. And we focused on him. We loved him. We listened to him. we followed him.